leave the mother and give oneself to the mother. Mado, my spiritual teacher, recently lost her middle son. He died from terminal cancer of the lungs. Mado wrote this article, and I decided to share it in the form of a video. Personally, I finally succeeded in letting go, accepting, and integrating so much, all because of these recent events. I trust this information will propel others forward on their conscious evolutionary journey. In my last video, my spiritual teacher's son died of turbo cancer and turbocharged my evolution of consciousness, which was based on an email I wrote to my mother. I described in more details Guillaume's story. I was pretty certain of how Mado lived this extreme creation of hers, but this article confirmed everything. Mado wrote, my translation from French, of all the sacrifices that my ego has had to make so far by navigating the path of the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo, the most difficult is linked to my role as mother. Obviously, I have many egoic programs to dissolve, but that of the mother is still a challenge. Like sexuality, motherhood remains a fundamental program of animal humanity, which ensures the perpetuation of the species. Its roots are deep and were essential to allow this special species, that is Homo sapiens, to last, despite its self-destructive tendencies. Tortures, assassinations, wars, and massacres have always been part of its history since its appearance on Earth. To compensate, one had to make babies, many babies. In most hominids, chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, and human beings, the stable couple does not exist, and the mothers take care of raising their young in the group until they are able to provide their primary needs by themselves. For example, in chimpanzees, the gestation time is 8.5 months, and the female gives birth every 5 years. The mother breastfeeds the little one and diligently takes care of him for 3 to 5 years before a new baby is born. This young chimpanzee becomes a full member of his herd, 30 to 250, and his mother gradually ceases to take care of him. He becomes mature around 13 to 15 years. These figures remain surprisingly similar to those encountered in primitive human tribes. The idea of a family based on a father and a mother living together and taking care of their children until they leave remains a fairly recent invention. The human mind has enabled the establishment of advanced patriarchal civilizations based on agriculture and the workforce living in a stable living environment. The first written laws obliging monogamy are in the Hammurabi Code, 1750 years before Jesus Christ, a legal text of ancient Mesopotamia. Deeply patriarchal, these laws aim to ensure family fidelity. Thus was born the stable monogamic couple, which still persists today in the majority of cases. This monogamy remains the rule even for Islam, because the Quran stipulates that for a Muslim to have several wives, the conditions of equity must be obeyed. In other words, one has to be rich to treat all your women well. For poor or middle class Muslims, monogamy remains the norm. Once the couple is formalized, the next step is procreation. With a little luck, the woman becomes pregnant. Genetic information of sperm and eggs allow the development of a new human body. However, because everything plays out in the woman's belly, this new human being feels like a physical extension of the mother's body. Her aspirations, her thoughts, her emotions, her desires, her habits, her atavism are automatically part of the baby's body. When the birth of the baby puts an end to this cohabitation, the physical attachment between mother and child remains, despite everything. The baby feels as a part of the mother's own body. I really felt this attachment when, in 2007, I had to place Gabriel, my severely mentally disabled son, in a foster family. Since the age of 1, he suffered from a rare disease, status epilepticus. These are epileptic attacks which last. Sometimes breathing stops while the convulsions continue. It is therefore a potentially fatal disease. Gabriel had to be urgently hospitalized 14 times, and 3 of those times his breathing stopped before his convulsions. During each episode, a new part of his brain was damaged. After 13 years of tireless care at home, hospital and healing centers, the disease had greatly diminished, but his mental handicap had become severe. He was 13 years old, and I saw myself forced to take care of him until my death. I was exhausted and discouraged. I had to choose between him and myself. Because my spouse, his brother Guillaume, and I formed an ideal environment, our efforts to place Gabriel were absolutely zero. Therefore, I left without leaving an address. And because of that, my spouse was able to immediately place Gabriel in a foster family. I cried all the tears of my body for months. I literally felt like my insides were being ripped out. With the help of the Aurobindian writings, I slowly overcame my despair of not being an ideal mother until the end. Gabriel is now 32 years old and still lives in the same foster family since my departure in 2007. I only saw him once in 2016. He did not recognize me. Part of me was immensely relieved, but the other part was devastated. Therefore, I was not healed yet. This departure of mine in 2007 was my first experience of letting go of the animal mothers program. I really felt the extent of the physical bond that attaches mother and child. The mother explains. At the risk of erasing many illusions in your conscience, I must tell you a little about the origin of the mother's love for the child. For her, this child is made of her own substance, and for quite a long time, relatively long, the material, substantial bond between the child and the mother is extremely close. It is as if a piece of her flesh was taken and placed at a distance. And it is only after a very long time that the link between the two is completely cut. There is a kind of bond of subtle sensation, such that the mother feels exactly what the child feels, as if she would feel it in herself. This is the material basis of the mother's attachment to the child. It is a material identity. Just that. Do not confuse this with love. It is a material identity that makes one intimately feel. The mother feels in a completely concrete and material way what the child experiences. If the child receives a shock, well, the mother feels it. The mother, the woman. Recently, my second child, Guillaume, died at 35 years old. 2 Covidian injections, health pass to travel, followed by a turbo cancer of the lungs, invasive treatments of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and special injections from a dedicated oncologist, which probably stopped his healing potential. Every 3 weeks for 2 years, Guillaume received experimental injections at $7,000 each, paid by our taxes, $250,000 in total. Since he refused to speak to me, my role as a mother was once again called into question. Recently, I understood the immense gift Guillaume gave to me. I didn't have to go to his bedside at the hospital or help him with his daily life in his apartment in Montreal, 2 hours away from where I live. His gift became even bigger when he decided to stop his treatments and return to Nicaragua to see his wife one last time. He died in her arms on a Pacific beach, surrounded by a congregation of Christians who prayed for him. He was baptized the day before his death and gave himself to Jesus. As he made his last breath, he smiled, looking at the sky. I could have never given him such help. His soul decided that this was the best way to evolve in his final days, in this body. For years, he was a staunch materialistic atheist, and therefore, this was his way of propelling himself towards the divine. I learned of Guillaume's death the day when Emmanuel, the individual responsible for the YouTube page Divine Mother, Mère Divine YouTube, met several of the participants in the 6 Aurobindian groups during his visit to Quebec. I am certain that this was a wink from the mother, telling me to definitely let go of the old animal mother's program. I now understand in the deepest part of myself that Guillaume, Gabriel, and I are all 3 children of the Supreme Mother. None of us have to exercise control over the behavior of the other. As Sri Aurobindo explained to a disciple one day, a person's ego cannot judge that another soul has made a mistake. It is the psychic being, the soul, which decides what happens to the body it inhabits. The role of the parent is simply to give an example by giving oneself to the Supreme Mother and dissolving the ego, one personality at a time. These days, I continue to improve my interactions with my daughter Geneviève and her two children, Elora, 8 years old, and Divran, 1 year old. I strive to follow the following advice from the mother. Very few of them, the parents, even among the most serious and sincere, know that the first thing to do to be able to educate a child is to educate yourself, to become aware and master of self, so that they never give a bad example to their child, because it is above all by example that education is effective. With very few exceptions, parents do not realize the disastrous influence that their faults, their impulses, their weaknesses, and their lack of control over themselves exercises on their children. If you want to be respected by a child, respect yourself and be worthy of respect at any time. Never be authoritarian, despotic, impatient, or carried away. The mother, the woman. Gradually leaving my role as mother of my children, I assume more and more my state of a child of the Supreme Mother. As the mother recommends above, I try with more and more sincerity to eliminate my faults, my impulses, my weaknesses, and my lack of control over myself. I stop telling my children what to do or not to do. I stop judging them with my too limited mind, and to impose myself with my vital, who is always eager to show off. By example, I encourage them to trust the Supreme Mother, to accept any task that she assigns to us at all times. Not all storms come to disturb your life. Some come to clear your path. Let us keep our faith ardent and an unfailing sincerity in these times of irremediable dissolution of the illusion. We must choose our soul at all costs. Infinite love. From millennium slavery to individual sovereignty. In the Orient, in the 20th century, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother discovered and anchored truth consciousness, the supramental consciousness in the earthly atmosphere. Once well anchored, the new consciousness was ready to move on to the next stage, its popularization and propagation. In the West, in the 21st century, emerged personal creatia, the power of the sovereign person to govern oneself. Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga goes beyond individual liberation and undertakes collective transformation on earth. After the death of Sri Aurobindo, the Mother continued their work, and on February 29, 1956, the supramental consciousness was definitely anchored on earth. One single and sincere look at the present world situation is enough to convince anybody that it has reached a point of no return. Humanity is heading towards a monumental dead end. Let's stop repeating our obsolete ways, which can only bring more suffering. Personal creatia continues the diffusion of truth consciousness in the West. Substantial unity replaces the guru-disciple separation. Let us all spread the contagion of love. I'm out of the game. Like Truman in The Truman Show, I have taken my bow and left a world of illusion, this computer simulation to which I have given authority to manage my life. I leave the theater, where I have played time and time again the roles of disciple, daughter, parent, dentist, entrepreneur, citizen. Today, I devote myself fully and without limits to spreading individual sovereignty, the truth consciousness that I have been experiencing since 2002. Infinite love.